What is Trump derangement syndrome? Well, to me, it just means that they're extremely negative towards Donald Trump and often for unstated reasons, right? So I think it's fair to criticize the president. I think there's a lot to criticize him for, and I can say it a million times on all of my channels how much I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I just don't have Trump derangement syndrome. And what that means is I'm not going to scream and foam at the mouth about what Donald Trump is doing. I'm going to calmly be like, yeah, I really didn't like that Trump did that, and I'm kind of worried about the rhetoric he uses and things. Like, I'm going to be calm. I'm not going to freak out. I also don't have what's referred to by the CBC as Trump anxiety disorder. So I guess if you like Trump, the people who like Trump call it Trump derangement syndrome, and the people who don't like Trump call it Trump anxiety disorder, because it's much more polite. Or I guess when you're referring to yourself and how you've got some kind of, disorder, you're going to call it Trump anxiety disorder instead of derangement syndrome. I guess derangement syndrome is a bit too mean. So this is the CBC though. So I guess this is coming from a Canadian perspective. So Canadians are really worried about the president apparently. Let's see what they have to say. In a divided US, therapists treating anxiety are hearing the same name over and over, Donald Trump. Trump anxiety disorder may not be an official diagnosis, but therapists know the symptoms. I just got to say, look, if you're somebody who's worried about Donald Trump and you're actually getting anxiety and you're freaking out, you do need a therapist. And I mean this wholeheartedly. I mean, it's funny that we're hearing that people are going to therapists and saying these things, but hopefully your therapist will walk you through how the media is manipulating you and how everyone's getting all riled up for insane reasons, okay? I hope everybody who dislikes Trump knows it is no worse now than it was during Bush. In fact, it was substantially worse during Bush, right? We had 9/11 and things like that. With Trump, we just have ridiculous rhetoric. So calm down, be vigilant by all means, but you need to breathe, and I maybe a therapist is exactly what you need. Is he gonna blow us all up? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. Like, Trump isn't God Emperor. Perhaps that's what's happening. Perhaps the people who have Trump derangement syndrome or Trump anxiety disorder are hearing the Trump supporters calling him God Emperor, and they genuinely believe he has the authority and power to do such a thing. Yes, technically, or I shouldn't even say technically, yes, the president can obviously do it, but there's checks and balances in place. And if Trump really was about to put his finger on the nuke, on the button, there would be people questioning why he was going to do that. There are generals who advise the president. It's not just like, it would be so insane. And I don't know what planet you live on if you really do believe that President Trump is going to pick up the red phone and say, fire Z missiles. It's just not going to happen. And you know what? Hey, there's always a possibility. So I guess I'll put it this way. When you buy a lottery ticket, if you walked around telling everyone you were definitively going to win the lottery, people would be like, come on, man, no, you're not. And that's exactly how I feel. When people are like, is he going to blow us all up? I'm like, come on, man. You're not going to win the lottery. Can you? Sure. Are you? Probably not. All right, let's actually read the story because So inquired one of Elizabeth Lamott's patients recently fretting out loud about the volatility of U.S. President Donald Trump's action during a therapy session at her Washington practice. It was a rhetorical question, one that predated Trump's threats of a showdown with Iran this week. But if the question wasn't meant in earnest, the politically induced anxiety Lamott is hearing about from her clients certainly is, says the founder of DC Counseling Psychotherapy. She refers to it as a collective anxiety among patients who feel on edge about how potentially dire the president's decisions could be. There is a fear of the world ending, she said. It's very disorienting and constantly unsettling. What's been called Trump anxiety disorder has been on the rise in the months following the election, according to mental health professionals from across the country who report unusually high levels of politics-related stress and in their practices. Okay, let me just stop right here. Wait, hold on, let me not. And it's maybe not surprising given the relentlessly negative headlines and politically divisive climate. There it is! I just blew your speakers out with that loud yell, but the headlines. 90% of the time Trump is sitting around probably in his boxers watching Fox and Friends. I'm being facetious, but yes, majority of the time he's probably just sitting around, watching Fox and Friends. And people think like he's sitting there like drawing up plans to destroy the planet or that things really are going to end. No, they're not. The economy is booming. Unemployment is down. Things are actually pretty good. And I understand this tweet right here, where he said never ever threaten the United States again. Look, saber rattling. Do we freak out every single time North Korea is saber rattles? Well, recently, yes, but before Trump, no, not really. Everybody would be like, oh, they're just saber rattling, which basically means they're just trying to spook everybody and rah, and prove that they're tough. Trump's doing similar things. He's loud and boisterous, and everyone thinks the world is ending. You know what it really is? Activist organizations who make money off of fearful liberals and a media industry that makes money off of fearful liberals. This week, it was menacing all-caps Trump tweet warning Iran about potentially historic consequences. Previously, it was the Supreme Court picks and fears that the legal right to abortion could be overturned, or his immigration policy separating families at the border, or his apparent submission to Russian President Vladimir Putin before a global audience. So let's go through this. Let's go through this. All right. It was the Supreme Court picks. Well, yeah, that's pretty serious. Does it mean the world's going to end? No. Does it mean that Roe v. Wade will be overturned? Probably not, no. Because I'm fairly certain that Kavanaugh said it's like law and they're not going to meddle with it. And not only that, the Supreme Court can't just go in and be like, oh, everyone, by the way, Roe v. Wade, overturned. That's not how it works. There's got to be some kind of case or precedent. But I will say, it is absolutely worrisome, to people on the left, that the Supreme Court is going to be dominated by conservatives, and that if Trump wins re-election, and I think he's going to, and so does Michael Moore and Bill Maher and Al Sharpton, a bunch of other people, as of right now, I think it's going to happen. Trump might actually get to pick, I think, two more justices. So far he's picked 2, and we've got some older folks on the crowd, so that's serious. But none of these things will mean the world is going to end. And things might get bad for certain groups of people, and we don't want things to get bad. But they could be. We don't know what's going to happen. Right? And so be vigilant. But don't freak out. Never panic. Actually, we can look at all of this. And they always tell you in an emergency, don't panic. Calm down. Breathe. Let's figure this one out. And if we can sit down and talk about it, maybe we could figure things out. But unfortunately, too many people are going insane and bashing each other over the head with bike locks. And that makes it really hard to have a conversation when a bunch of, Trump-supporting frat bros want to go walk around and then Antifa throws up and throws mortars at them. Look, I get it. We want to oppose fascism. And by all means, go and oppose fascism. Just don't go and throw explosives at, conservative Christian dudes who want to march to the streets. In reference to August 4th, if Antifa does not show up, and the Proud Boys in Patriot Prayer are allowed to walk around waving their little American flags, nothing will happen. And they'll be allowed to walk around waving their little American flags. And what's so wrong with that? For some reason, people just don't want to give them the symbolic victory of being able to express their First Amendment right. Well, yeah. The police have actually protected, actual white supremacists in the South. If you want to walk around and wave your little flag, by all means, do it. You mean the ACLU defended the KKK. So separating families at the border, I actually disagree with it because I think immigration it's a nonviolent offense. It does need to be dealt with. We need to figure out how we can have. I agree with Bernie Sanders. We need to sit down and figure out an actual plan for immigration into this country. We do need to control for it, and I applaud Bernie for refusing to espouse that garbage rhetoric of abolish ICE because it means nothing. You can't get rid of immigration enforcement. And not only that, CBP are the ones who are separating families at the border. It's not ICE. Not necessarily ICE, right? ICE is involved in immigration and things like that. But Customs and Border Protection. It's like nobody knows what they're talking about. And let me add this too. I could be wrong, So it's silly of me to try and act like I'm smarter than anybody or to say that. That was dumb. I shouldn't do that. It is my understanding that Customs and Border Protection are the one who are actually apprehending the individuals as they cross the border, and ICE is involved in the process. So let me just put it this way. I think it's weird that people are overly focused on ICE. We have that slogan. Submission to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Okay, Do I like that Trump appears weak in some circumstances or to certain people? Of course not. I don't like that. But I also recognize that people have different ways of dealing with hostile forces. Now think about it this way. People have said, why is Trump criticizing our allies and ponying up to dictators? Well, he doesn't need to pony up to our allies. They're our allies. So you can be a little tough on them and piss them off. And should you? Not necessarily, but maybe sometimes you've got to say, think about it this way. If you have a roommate, and I know it's not a perfect analogy, but let's say you have a roommate and they won't do the dishes. Yeah, you yell at him. Does it mean is he going to move out? No, of course he's not going to move out. I mean, maybe, but no. But then think about the neighbor across the street who keeps, dumping their trash in the middle of the street. Are you going to go there and scream at the top of your lungs, you better get your trash? Is that going to be effective? Maybe, depends. Or you're going to be like, hey man, I'm really sorry to bother you, but could you do me a favor and get your trash out of the street? There's different strategies. I'm not saying which one's right or wrong, but all right, I don't want to go on too long. I only got a few more minutes before I run over, but let's talk about the symptoms. In a 2017 essay for a book co-edited by psychiatrists from Harvard Medical School and the Yale School of Medicine, clinical psychologist Jennifer Panning of Evanston, Illinois, called the condition Trump anxiety disorder, distinguishing it from a generalized anxiety disorder because symptoms were specific to the election of Trump and the resultant unpredictable socio-political climate. Oh my God. Though not an official diagnosis, the symptoms include feeling a loss of control and helplessness, and fretting about what's happening in the country and spending excessive time on social media. Trump and his supporters, for their part, have their own term for the malady they see as afflicting only reactionary anti-Trump progressives: Trump derangement syndrome. Let me just say, no. Well, I think it's fair to say Trump and his supporters, they do have that. But don't forget, there are people who don't like Trump, i.e. me, who will still recognize Trump derangement syndrome. I have to talk to people like my friends, and I'm like, dude, listen, calm down, friend. Here's the thing. You're never going to hear me rant to the extreme degree at which I really do despise Donald Trump. Because, for one, it's not effective in political discourse. If I came up here and started screaming and frothing at the mouth about how much I hate Barack Obama, the evil extrajudicial assassination, NDAA, AUMF, deporter-in-chief, I don't get that angry because I want to make sure you're hearing the words I'm saying. And trust me, when in private among my friends, I have gotten into very heated arguments with some prominent Trump people about how much I really, really do not like Trump. But you know what? I understand that people do like him. And the only way I'm going to actually have a conversation about policy and what's happening is not to insult someone and attack them and froth at the mouth, but to be like, okay, let's have an argument. Let's sit here and debate. We'll have a dialectic and try and come to the truth, and maybe I can persuade you. Maybe you could persuade me because I'm listening. But there's a reason I call it Trump derangement syndrome. Because I have actually had people disavow me, like friends I've known for years, message me and be like, I'm done with you because you won't call out Donald Trump. And I'm like, dude, I do. I do. How many times in this video have I said I don't like him? I hate bringing up all the old these things over again, but Syria missile strike, Yemen. I mentioned I don't like his tactic in dealing with Russia. What do you want me to say? I'm not going to scream, but that's what they want me to do. People I've known for years are mad that I'm not screaming at the top of my lungs and making video after video after video attacking Donald Trump. You know what? I didn't make video after video after video talking about Barack Obama either, or Hillary Clinton. Sometimes here and there, But that's the thing. And that's why I call it Trump derangement syndrome. Now, there's a lot more to this article. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I think you got the gist of my stance on the whole thing. But I think too many people, basically what I think is happening is that people are sitting in a bubble and one person says, I'm scared of Trump. So then the other person gets scared of Trump because if you're scared, I'm scared. It's kind of like we look to leadership to determine whether or not how we should feel. Not everyone does this. Some people are leaders, some people are followers. It's not a good or bad thing. Some people like following. Sometimes we don't have time or energy to focus on politics. There's a lot of people in this country who have specific jobs and don't have the time to read all the news, and so they look to trusted figures and say, hey, listen, man, look, I'm an expert plumber, so I can tell you to fix a toilet, but you read the news every day, so I'm going to listen to you when it comes to these matters, and that's totally acceptable. But it also opens the door for people to look around, find frantic individuals who they think know what they're talking about, and then follow their lead. And thus we end up with Trump derangement syndrome, or at least according to the CBC, Trump anxiety disorder. So, whichever you believe it to be, whatever you want to call it, I recommend turning off Twitter, sitting down, watching some Family Guy, or maybe something not political. So Family Guy can get political, so maybe some old cartoons, something from before, some old school Simpsons. Crack a beer or a fresh ice water if you're not a drinker, and have some enjoyable food and talk about something else. before you lose your goddamn mind. Anyway, stick around. I've got one more story coming up for you today.